More than 50 years have passed, and everyone is eager to know whether that man can be resurrected, and whether the advanced, modern science of humanity can create a miracle. Can mankind possess the technology to revive a dead person? That is a question that many people still long to have answered today. Half a century ago, Dr. James Hiram Bedford also hoped for the same. With a strong desire to live, that man voluntarily chose to freeze his body with the promise of revival in 2017. 7 years have passed since that important milestone, and everyone wants to know the fate of the man who was once considered the richest man in America. James Hiram Bedford was a psychology professor at the University of California and a World War I veteran. He lived a full life in the mid-20th century, married twice, and traveled to many places around the world. He hunted in Africa, visited the Amazon rainforest, and traveled across Greece, Turkey, Spain, England, Scotland, Germany, and Switzerland. James Hiram Bedford was also one of the first people to drive the Alcan Highway to the Northwest Territories of Canada and Alaska. Having traveled extensively and learned much, he always had many notable reflections on the purpose of life and the meaning of death. Born into a wealthy family, his parents were among the affluent in the area. In addition, James Hiram Bedford possessed exceptional intelligence. He was described as gentle, reserved, and responsible. Students who had been taught by him praised their teacher as a person of profound intellect and an exemplary educator. James Hiram Bedford had many adventures in his life, but perhaps the most special adventure began when his heart stopped beating. In 1967, James Hiram Bedford was diagnosed with terminal kidney cancer, with cancer cells having metastasized to his lungs. With the medical capabilities of that time, this was almost a death sentence. Previously, James had read the idea in the book, The Prospect of Immortality, by Dr. Robert Ettinger, who was considered the father of body freezing experiments and the founder of the Cryonics Institute, an organization specializing in providing body freezing services after death. In April 1966, another woman had also been frozen in Arizona, but she only lasted a few months. It was speculated that her body had been preserved too late, causing some of the cells to decompose. Even if she could be revived, her brain would suffer severe damage. Before he passed away, James said his last words to Robert Nelson, now 82 years old, one of the 3 scientists directly involved in his body freezing event. I want you to understand that I am not doing this with the thought that I will be revived. I am doing this with the hope that one day my descendants will benefit from this wonderful scientific solution. Before he passed away, James left behind an amount of over $100,000 to fund the process of freezing his body. On January 12, 1967, James Hiram Bedford died of cardiac arrest at a nursing home at the age of 73. Dr. Renaud Abel performed artificial respiration and chest compressions to maintain blood circulation in his body. Afterwards, blood was drawn from his body and dimethyl sulfoxide was injected to protect the organs. Finally, his body was placed in a liquid nitrogen tank at a temperature of -196 degrees Celsius. However, at that time, the freezing equipment was not yet perfected. 3 scientists decided to temporarily preserve Professor James' body. Robert Nelson placed his body in a wooden coffin filled with ice, then loaded it onto his Ford pickup truck and drove home. However, Professor James' first wife did not allow this and threatened to call the police. Robert, reluctantly, had to drive alone with the professor's body to a friend's house in Topanga Canyon to hide it temporarily. He recalled, I drove through the bumpy roads with a frozen body in the back. It was crazy. The body of Professor James was temporarily preserved in Topanga for over 2 weeks. During that time, his widow and children completed the legal procedures to carry out the freezing operation. After designing the first preservation container for him, Professor James was transferred back to Arizona and preserved at the Cryonics Institute of Cryocare Medical Equipment Corporation. This was indeed an arduous journey to bring Professor James closer to the hope of revival in the future. In April 1970, the body of James Hiram Bedford was transferred to the Galiso Testing Equipment Manufacturing and Repair Company in Southern California. During his time at Galiso, His body had to lie among unfinished tanks and dusty, cluttered testing equipment. Strangely, despite these less-than-ideal preservation conditions, the frozen state of his body was still maintained intact. In July 1976, the family decided to move Professor James' body to another facility also in California. Although his wife and children greatly respected his wishes, some other family members disagreed with this special resting method. This led to a fierce legal battle among family members. The $100,000 asset that James left for the preservation of his body gradually depleted due to legal costs. By 1977, the preservation expenses were increasing, forcing James' son to bring his father's body home and occasionally refill it with liquid nitrogen to maintain its frozen state. In 1982, the Alcor Life Extension Foundation agreed to accept and preserve Professor James' body. He was transferred to a luxurious facility owned by Alcor, located on the edge of the Sonoran Desert in Arizona. This marked a new turning point in the long and challenging journey of Professor James' body, a testament to the family's unwavering effort to keep their promise to the deceased. In 1991, Alcor decided to open the container holding Professor James Hiram Bedford's body to examine its preservation status after 24 years. Technicians carefully cut through the metal cover of the cryogenic vessel and saw his body inside a light blue sleeping bag, wrapped in a nylon support. The body of James was subsequently transferred into a liquid nitrogen tank, covered with pollen powder to assist in the examination. The technicians remarked that his body was well preserved. His face looked much younger than his age of 73 at the time of death. However, some areas of skin on his chest and neck showed signs of discoloration, and the body had 2 puncture wounds. His nose and mouth emitted a faint smell of blood, and his eyes were partially open with the corneas having turned a chalky white due to freezing. James' legs were crossed, with his right leg placed over his left. Some small cuts appeared on the surface of the skin, but overall, the preservation condition was still assessed as good. After the examination process, the technicians at Alcor wrapped Professor James' body in a new sleeping bag. His body was then further immersed in liquid nitrogen, awaiting advancements in revival technology that could turn hope into reality. Now, in 2024, it has been 7 years since the promise was made to revive Professor James Hiram Bedford, but he remains just a frozen mummy, standing upright alongside 145 others. The question arises, in the next decade, will humanity be able to perform the miracle of awakening James and realizing this hope? To delve deeper, let's explore the story below. Mount Rokko in Kobe, Japan, is a famous natural attraction known for its rolling hills, long trails, and panoramic views of Osaka Bay. Every year, in autumn, the 914-meter-high peak bursts into colors of red, yellow, and orange, becoming an appealing destination for barbecues and outdoor activities for the youth. In October 2006, Mitsuda Uchikoshi, a 35-year-old civil servant, organized a picnic with a group of friends on Mount Rokko. After a day of fun, food, and conversation at the summit, Uchikoshi's friends decided to take the cable car down the mountain to go home. Uchikoshi chose to walk down one of the trails instead. However, on the way down, an unexpected accident occurred. Uchikoshi slipped, fell hard down the mountain, hit his head, and fractured his pelvis, rendering him unable to move or call for help. His situation on the remote mountain, far from any assistance, became a sensational story that attracted much attention. The injured man could only lie on the mountainside, facing the biting cold of autumn. At night, the temperature here dropped to -10 degrees Celsius, and the piercing winds cut through every layer of clothing, leaving him bone-chilled. Unable to endure, Uchikoshi gradually faded and lost consciousness. 24 days later, a hiker happened to pass by and discovered him. Uchikoshi was taken to Kobe City Medical Center General Hospital in a state of extremely low body temperature, his body cold to the touch, and many internal organs severely damaged. According to news reports at the time, the doctors caring for Uchikoshi concluded that he had fallen into a state similar to hibernation. This miraculous survival story immediately attracted the attention of the scientific community for 2 main reasons. First, it was a survival beyond imagination. Uchikoshi had endured excruciating pain from broken bones, bone-chilling cold, and near exhaustion from hunger. factors that should have taken his life. But not only did he survive, Uchikoshi also recovered quickly and was discharged after 50 days, without any long-term damage. Doctors suggested that some change in Uchikoshi's brain may have occurred, helping his body enter a previously unrecorded state of biological stasis. Second, the story itself astonished many. The doctors at Kobe Hospital initially believed that Uchikoshi was no longer alive when he was brought in. However, a series of reports indicated that he had indeed entered a state resembling hibernation. Some people argued that this was physiologically impossible. After Uchikoshi was discharged from the hospital, the media and scientists seem to have forgotten this rare case. There are no reports in scientific literature that accurately document what helped the man survive, nor is there any explanation for the extraordinary endurance he displayed on the mountain. However, this Japanese man's story remains one of the most commonly cited examples of the potential hibernation abilities of humans. So what really happened to Uchikoshi on the mountain in 2006? To understand the challenges Uchikoshi faced, we can look at how scientists today use hypothermia to induce a state of biological pause in severely injured patients. This is also the direction that aerospace companies are researching, aiming to develop hibernation protocols for interplanetary journeys beyond the orbits of the Moon and Mars. At the same time, advances in neuroscience research are shedding light on the chemical mysteries within the brain, aiming to trigger a hibernation-like state in humans, based on mechanisms found in other mammals. This experiment was named Zombie Dogs when it was published in the New York Times in 2005. The experiment demonstrated that a rapidly cooled circulatory system could put dogs into a state of suspended animation. In the procedure at the Safar Center, the dogs' blood was drawn from their bodies and gradually replaced with a cold saline solution that provided essential nutrients and oxygen. Without blood, the dogs' hearts stopped beating, and their brains ceased functioning, creating a phenomenon known as clinical death. The researchers then removed the cold saline solution and returned warm blood. After about 60 minutes, the dogs were revived with strong electric shocks, and most of them showed no brain damage. This is one of the profound experiments in the study of hypothermia therapy, a method that has become popular in hospitals around the world, applied in certain conditions such as heart attacks and brain injuries due to lack of oxygen. If we consider the brain like a computer, hypothermia therapy allows it to enter sleep mode, keeping it powered while preventing it from shutting down completely. This gives doctors the time to repair and restart the patient. Research on zombie dogs has opened up new possibilities, allowing trauma patients, especially those at risk of quickly losing liters of blood due to stab wounds or gunshot injuries, to avoid death if their bodies are effectively cooled. Scientifically, the mystery of hypothermia therapy has been better understood. Our cells use oxygen to produce energy. Under normal conditions, the heart pumps blood throughout the body to maintain this process. However, in patients with severe trauma leading to blood loss, the heart stops functioning, and the cells quickly become deprived of oxygen, leading to cell death. At this point, lowering the body temperature by a few degrees helps slow down cellular activity, causing them to require less energy and oxygen. In 2016, in a clinical trial approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, a group of surgeons at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, led by Dr. Samuel Tisherman, began testing how this procedure could help trauma patients survive. It is hoped that the procedure called emergency preservation and resuscitation will improve survival rates for trauma patients without causing any damage to their brains. So, could this be a potential answer to Uchikoshi's fortune? Did hypothermia contribute to his miraculous survival? 6 years after Uchikoshi left Kobe Hospital, another extraordinary survival case came to light. A 44-year-old Swedish man was trapped for 2 months inside his car during a snowstorm, buried under thick snow, with outside temperatures reaching -30 degrees Celsius. He told the police that he had no food but had eaten snow to survive. The doctors treating this man were also stunned, just like the doctors who had been at Kobe Hospital. In summary, from the zombie dogs to the miraculous survival case of the man in Sweden, we have seen the incredible capacity of the human body to respond to temperature changes. It seems that humans still retain some special abilities, allowing them to go even further, even falling into a state of biological suspension without leaving lasting negative impacts, even in the harshest conditions. However, even the doctors at Kobe Hospital lost track of Uchikoshi. Although this man had regularly visited the hospital for 2 years after his accident, since 2008, no one knows what happened to him. Returning to the original question, what really happened to Uchikoshi on the mountain in 2006? Clearly, we still do not have an answer. There is no way to know exactly how his brain and body reacted when he was unconscious for more than 3 weeks. Perhaps scientists did not have the opportunity to learn anything more from how Uchikoshi escaped his cruel fate. All we know for sure is that Uchikoshi survived, but to this day, the dream of human hibernation remains distant and will require many more decades to realize. Miracles like Uchikoshi's may not just be brief, involuntary sleeps. Instead, humans could be intentionally cooled for hours after a traumatic accident, allowing doctors enough time to treat them. Or further still, we might enter prolonged metabolic stasis for months to endure the long journey to Mars or even beyond. Perhaps in those moments, we will finally understand what happened to Uchikoshi. Recently, the American Neuro Research Center Reanima Advanced Biosciences proposed an idea to revive clinically dead individuals. This method aims to restart the brain, triggering the heart's activity before other cells and organs cease functioning permanently. According to the plan, doctors and experts will use stem cells from the patient's brain, then inject additional peptides and employ other methods to stimulate the nervous system to function again. This project has shocked the world as it aims to explore whether it is possible to revive the brains of the deceased. The project has received approval from health oversight organizations. Patients participating in the trial must be certified as brain dead but are kept alive through life support machines. They will be monitored for several months using brain scanning devices to look for signs of recovery, especially in the upper spinal cord, the lowest area of the brain responsible for controlling breathing and heart rate. The research team believes that brain stem cells can help eliminate damage at the cellular level, thereby reviving brain activity based on the regeneration of surrounding brain tissue. This is the first time this experiment has been conducted, marking a revolutionary step in the fight against death. Experts will combine the use of biological regeneration tools along with modern medical devices to stimulate the central nervous system. At the same time, peptides will be pumped into the spinal cord daily through a special pump, while stem cells will be introduced into the body every 2 weeks. This process is planned to last continuously for 6 weeks. They want to prove that brain death can be treated, and if successful, this project will open a new door for future medicine, offering a chance for complete recovery for brain-dead patients. While the whole world eagerly awaits the initial results of the RAB project, some new promises about revival technology are also beginning to emerge. Some companies are focusing on ways to extend human life, even adding decades or centuries. In particular, technology experts from Humai in Los Angeles, USA, are nurturing a bold idea, resurrecting the dead based on artificial intelligence and nanotechnology. They confidently claim that it may be possible to truly bring the dead back to life within the next 30 years. This idea revolves around a project called AI Human, a form of artificial body that allows for the transmission of a person's entire consciousness right at the moment before and after death. According to published information, experts will use AI and nanotechnology to store the characteristic information of a person, including a speaking style, a language, gestures, thought processes, but detailed information about the body's functioning from the inside out. All this data will be encoded and then placed into an artificial body through sensor technology integrated with the brain of a deceased person. The human brain is a complex information system, and with the development of modern technology, we are gradually reaching the ability to store and process brain information with machines. This process works similarly to advanced prosthetics today, where brain waves are used to control movement. When the human brain ceases to function, cloning technology will restore it, providing the ability to continue life. Thus, humans can truly be revived. Based on all this evidence, we have every reason to believe that, within the next few decades, James Hiram Bedford could be revived after nearly 100 years of hibernation. This is a revolutionary step, not only for science but also for the implications regarding the existence of life and death for humanity. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.